Welcome everybody to part 2 of Insights into the Haggada. In some pre-recording chat, Melinda just mentioned something that I wanted to also mention. One of the things we do at all of the Yontef meals we have at our house all throughout the year. Say it's Shavuos, I'll go around the table, or I'll ask the table, I'll say, tell me something you've learned about Shavuos that this year that you didn't know before. And that leads into all kinds of different and interesting discussions. So I bring that up. Melinda brought it up first. She said that she was going to ask her table, or at least the people that were going to show up at her Seder table, that same question. So I urge everybody to ask that question and ask it at every Yontef meal. All right, I just wanted to mention a quick thought on Matzav, the situation that's going on, that's on everybody's mind. It's something that I would never have the nerve to say, but somebody, a well-respected rabbi in Israel said it, so I'm repeating his words. And then we'll talk about the Haggada. I just want to mention this one quick thing first. He said that maybe one of the messages that we can get from the current situation maybe is analogous to, we read from Yeshayahu, from Isaiah on many occasions, and I think on all the fast days. Certainly, we remember it from Yom Kippur. The part towards the end where Hashem is saying, I don't want your korbanos, I don't want your sacrifices. This is what I want you to do. And this Rav in Israel apparently wrote this brilliant thing that a lot of people are praising. I haven't seen it. It's all in Hebrew. It's a 5-page thing, but I heard it described to me. He said maybe Hashem is saying something like that to us right now. Of course, that's not to say this is the cause of the situation, but one of the messages inside it is maybe Hashem is saying, enough with again, this is startling to hear. He's saying enough with your minyanim. There's safety in numbers. When you're in a group, you're thinking about the group, and your minyanim, you daven too fast, and that rang a bell. You're just saying all the words. Hashem is saying, I don't want your minyanim, I want you. I want you to think and engage in real introspection. That's what the holidays, part of the holidays are for, introspection. As we all know, it's not just a historical exercise. And as I mentioned at the beginning of yesterday, everybody's Seder is going to be very different this year. Only having maybe 2 people. In my case, I'm lucky to have 4. Some people are only going to have 1. And this is a good opportunity to take our time and explore various issues. Explore the issues that Chazal wanted us to explore when they composed, and the rabbis after them composed the Haggada. So yesterday I spoke about one big overarching thing, which if I had to sum up in 2 sentences would be this, that we know that Pesach is connected to Shavuos. We know that Moshe never said, let us be free. Rather, he always said, let us be free so that we can serve Hashem. And that part of the message of yesterday was that serving Hashem doesn't mean just be a good person. What it means is that there's a Jewish way to serve Hashem. There's a Jewish way. We have a structure. We have halacha. We have we have a Jewish way of living, and that is it's part of what the message of the whole structure of the Haggada was. And if you're interested in more of that, email me and I'll send you a link to yesterday's shir. Hold on one second. I have some people want to enter. Okay. So now I want to talk about one of the messages of the Haggada. This first one will be a big issue, and then if there's time at the end, I'll add a couple more smaller ones. I have the wrong page here, sorry, hold on. All right, here we go. So just as a warm-up, many of us know the following. We know that just as Hashem created the universe physically, the universe was created spiritually, and Hashem created time. So as we know, the word for holiday is moed, and moed also means a meeting spot. That is the time. So a moed, in terms of a holiday, is the time when we meet Hashem. As we've talked about before, we don't celebrate Pesach because it happened to come out on the 15th of Nisan. Rather, the 15th of Nisan has embedded within it a special koach, a special strength, a spirituality that enables us to transcend boundaries, to Yetzias Mitzrayim, to transcend, for us to get out of our narrow places. And so the following message is particularly useful for us when we discuss what I hope will be the overriding issue of the Seder and the Haggada, and that's Yetzias Mitzrayim. Before I get into that, a little bit more introductory work. In Chassidus, we talk about how 3 is a masculine number and 4 is a feminine number. So we have the 3 Avos, Avram, Yitzhak, and Yaakov. We have the 4 Imahos, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, and Leah. So I've read that as one explanation why the number 4 appears so many times in our Haggada. The idea is that the masculine role, so to speak, that doesn't mean men, it means just the masculine flavor, whatever that is more external. Like as the joke goes, right? The man of the house, he takes care of the issues like deciding whether the country should go to war. And the woman of the house is the interior ministry, and she decides the little things like where should we live, what kind of education for our children. And so the Seder, the Pesach, reflected the main mitzvah of Pesach is the Seder, and the Seder is a home-based thing. So 4 appears all over the place, and we know there's 4 sons, 4 questions, 4 cups. So let us jump into that as a bridge into what the main message is. So we read in the Haggada that the 4 cups are because of the 4 expressions of redemption that God mentions in the Torah, right? Hotzeisi, Hitzalti, Goalti, Lakachti. So because of those 4 expressions, we have 4 cups. Those are some 4 expressions of redemption. So the first question that ought to be asked is, well, why do we need 4? Right? Hashem wants to take us out. Take us out. What do we need 4? So part of the message there, and this is the intro to the big takeaway, is that redemption comes in stages. We don't just jump out all at once. We may jump out physically. It may look like all at once. Certainly we left Mitzrayim, that happened pretty suddenly. But that wasn't the full redemption. So let's look at where those 4 words come from. Hotzeisi, the pasuk there, Hashem says, I will take you out of the burdens of Mitzrayim. So what I want to do is I want to relate all 4 pasukim to the Jewish people, and then I'll go back and I will talk about all 4 of them as they relate to us, which really is the ikar of this whole thing, of my whole spiel today. So for the Jewish people, I will take you out from the burdens of Mitzrayim, the first expression. So that is generally what we think about when we think about Yetzias Mitzrayim. We left Egypt. We left Mitzrayim. That's what that first pasuk is about. The next one is Hitzalti, I will save you. And the pasuk says, I will save you from their labor. And the word labor in the pasuk is avodah, which immediately, if we do word association, avodah also is avodah zara. And we know that the Jews were heavily influenced and must have been engaging in avodah zara, because I think, if I have the number right, I think I read that the prohibition against engaging in avodah zara appears 36 different times in the Torah. Why do we need it so much? So as the Midrash tells us, the urge for avodah zara was very, very strong in ancient days. And as we know, as the Gemara tells us, the Chachamim prayed that it should go away. I won't go into those details, but the main thing is that we've pretty much been saved from at least overt avodah zarah. We may talk about, avodah zarah in terms of maybe gashmias, money and things like that. But in terms of your classical Torah avodah zarah, our people, we don't seem to have a problem with that anymore. So that's taken care of. Pretend that's been taken care of. The third one, Goalti, I will redeem you with an outstretched arm. This, they say, refers to the other Yetzias Mitzrayim that our people had to engage with over history. So being saved in the Purim story from Persia, being saved by the Greeks, being saved by or from the oppression of the Romans. Although some people say the Galus of Rome actually still exists, which may or may not be. So what I'll say is that the first two expressions of redemption we pretty much have handled. The third one, maybe we're in the middle of. Maybe this is with the establishment of the state of Israel. Maybe we're part of the way there through the third stage of redemption. The fourth one, lakachti. I really love this one. Lakachti means I will take you to me, but the rest of the pasuk says, I will take you to me as a nation. And I think what the Mefarshim say that pasuk talks about is achdus, is unity. And that the unity among the Jewish people is something we need to do ourselves. And the commentators say, we're not there yet. I don't want to belabor any negativity, so read, just look around, read the media. We're not there yet. So those are the four expressions of redemption in terms of the Jewish people. Now, the main thing I want to talk about is the essence of it to us, and how this relates to plugging in with the spirituality going around with us on the 15th of Nisan. Yetzias Mitzrayim, that we can, that we should transcend our own spiritual straits that we're in. So again, part of the message is that redemption comes in stages. So to give a real simple one, I wasn't going to do that one first. We used to go around in our table, besides asking what did we learn about the particular holiday each day for the Seder, we used to go around our table and say, what was your personal Mitzrayim? And I have some fond memories of when my kids were little, they understood that question. And I remember, I don't know if it was Ellie or Josh said, my Mitzrayim is Frogger. Anybody remember that video game? It was and then one of them was probably, what's that?
That was Josh.
It was Josh, right?
Yeah,
and it was probably you who told me that my Mitzrayim, because you were never shy about such things, my Mitzrayim was the internet. And
was?
There you go. There you go. So the message partly is, and the thing that we can think about and have time to contemplate and ruminate over our Seder is what are our Mitzrayims? And the other message, the important message is that just like those four expressions, redemption, getting out of our Mitzrayims is a process, and it takes time, it takes different stages. To pick an easy example, many people these days are stressed and they're uptight and they're anxious. Maybe they snap a little bit easier in terms of anger and that sort of thing. So to make an easy example, you can't just decide, all right, you know what, tomorrow when I wake up, I'm just going to chill out. I'm not in control. I'm just going to chill out. And starting tomorrow, things are going to be better now. You can't just turn on a light switch. Redemption takes a process. You need a plan. You need a plan. And on top of that, we also have to remember that freedom of choice and control over ourselves and getting out of Mitzrayim, that it's not binary. It's not like we're not free versus we are free. Rabbi Sachs has this wonderful essay. If anybody wants it, just give me an email, send me an email afterwards. I can send it. He talks about the whole issue of freedom of choice. And he talks about, for example, Paro was enslaved himself to his own value system. You know, when the leader of a country or an organization, if they start telling lies or doing things, and other people have to lie to keep it up, and it's a whole balagan. And for us, we live in the land of the free. The Jews have never been more free than ever, and yet in this country, certainly many of us, to some extent, we're slaves to our surrounding culture. We're slaves to peer pressure. We're slaves to social media, right? Likes and followers are important to us. As a number of people here are aware, I probably sent them an email telling them how insecure I was that I would give this shiur and nobody would show up. And I was just very anxious about it. We all have a need for approval. I'm reminded, I saw a snippet of an interview from Taylor Swift, of all people. She has a gazillion followers, and she was talking about how some of the, if you're that famous on Twitter, of course people are going to criticize you. And she talked about how hurtful that was. And I remember thinking to myself, you got to be kidding me. You're a gazillionaire because people love you so much. How can a couple of weirdos, ruin your day? And as if she heard me, she went on to say, she said, look, every entertainer, this was an amazing eye-opener to me. She said, every entertainer goes into the business because they are fundamentally insecure and they need the approval of people. And when I don't get it from everybody, it bothers me. And that was such a huge eye-opener to me. And I'm thinking, Kal v'chomer, if it bothers her, us mere mortals, of course it's going to bother us too. If anybody wants to write the following question down, or if not, email me. I'll send it to you. I want to read this. I thought this is a great question to think about. If Hashem wants us to slow down at the Seder, this might be a question that we can ask as we plug into, how are we going to free ourselves from our own personal mitzrayim? The question is, what steps do you need to take? What stages must you pass through in order to reach your own personal redemption? So don't answer that now. Don't, obviously, this is a question for your table, or it's a question for you to think about overall of Pesach. And again, going with the Hasidic idea that the 15th and 16th of Nisan are very propitious times to get the koach, to get the strength to overcome our Mitzrayims. That would be a great time over the 2 days of Pesach, or probably overall 8 days of Pesach, to think about such a question. And since we're all in semi-solitary confinement, lots of time to think about it. Okay, so that's my main message. I want to just spend a couple more minutes talking about other questions that often come up during the Haggada. Here's a real simple one. Dayenu. I hope this isn't really already obvious to everybody. The obvious question for Dayenu is, what do you mean, if you brought us out into the desert and not brought us Torah, it would have been enough? What does it mean? What would be the point of coming out if it weren't enough? If it were enough. So the whole thing of Dayenu is that it would have been enough to thank you, to show appreciation to Hashem. Hakaras Hatov, you're recognizing the good in the things that happen, is such an important aspect of Judaism. I think of that I'm pretty good. I thanked my wife and family for cooking dinner last night. I did say thank you for making dinner. But what I didn't do, and I didn't even think about it last night until I was thinking about Dayenu today, what I didn't do is appreciate the fact that they also planned the menu. They also wrote down a shopping list, and they also went to the store to buy all the stuff. So when I say thank you for cooking the meal, all those other things are deserving of thanks too. So thank you, Ellie. Thank you, Shauna, if you listen to this recording later. So Diana is teaching us gratitude for all the intermediate steps that don't often get noticed because we just look at the final product. And it's also, that for a while it was very common for people to have a poster in the room somewhere. I don't know who it was that said it, it's not the destination, it's the journey, or something like that. That's a Jewish message also. And that's also the message of Dayenu here, that there is religious significance to our journeys. And it's not, it's not the final destination, because at least on this world, we all have the same destination, to be blunt. But it's what we do along the way. I know more than one person here is doing Daf Yomi. So of course the goal is to finish it, but that's 7 years from now. And if I stop today and never learned anymore, I can still step back and say, I've learned so much in the last 3 months. It's amazing. It's amazing. So every step along the way has significance. And so that's the message of Dayenu. Mention real quick, let's see what else. One of the things that always bothered me is what's with the section of Haggada where we say, no, it's not 10 plagues, it was 40. No, it wasn't 40, it was 50. No, it wasn't 50, it was 200. In years past, I've seen some answers like, well, the gematria, if you add it all up and the gematria of this means that, that never grabbed me. And finally, at last year's Seder, we invited a whole bunch of 20-somethings over to our Seder. It was a great Seder. They asked such great questions. And then one of them asked that question. And I promised them that I would look into it and have an answer by this year's Seder. So I won't be able to invite him, but I did find some answers. So one of them, on a very simple level, was just a recognition that the plagues had secondary effects, right? When the river turns to blood, yeah, that's a plague, but it's also a plague of sorts, or it's an affliction of sorts, that you couldn't bathe, you couldn't drink, right? There's all those things. It smelled, maybe the animals in the water died, and maybe that's why it's, there's all kinds of secondary effects. There's another interesting aspect that I learned. It is said that, what's the phrase? Even the maidservant at the banks of the Red Sea saw the hand of Hashem, or we're on a greater, I forget exactly what it is. We're on a greater, Rabbi Helen, if you know it, you can unmute and tell us. We're on a greater level than the greatest Nevi'im ever were. So the question's asked, well, what does that mean? What does that mean? Because they saw a miracle, Yes, the splitting of the Red Sea was the most amazing miracle, but Har Sinai was a pretty good miracle too. And there were other miracles. So what was it about that thing? So the rabbi explained it as follows. He said, if you notice the song of the sea that they sang, there are 3 different ways that people died. All right, so now that I said that, I can only think of 2 of them. One is that they dropped like a stone, and another one was like they dropped like a feather or piece of paper, I forget. And I forgot what the third one was. Oh, yeah, I should have prepared. I just wrote down Red Sea counting because I knew it, and now, of course, I can't remember it. But if you look, if you read through, and it's in the davening every morning, if you read through, there's 3 different ways that the Egyptians died. And the idea is that each of the Egyptians who died according to how evil they were. So now you can debate whether dying, like dropping like a stone immediately, is worse than dying like you're just floating down and drowning. I don't know. I don't know which one is worse. Actually, the Meforshim disagree. Some say it's one, whatever. But the idea is that the people who are really evil died in a bad way, and the people that were not quite so evil died in a not quite so bad way. And that is something that we as mortals, we as people, never, ever see. We never see people get their just results, just rewards. You know, not that we should, or we're not. I like to think, we're not God's accountants. We shouldn't decide who should be punished worse than others. But we never see that, right? We see lots of evil people who are really rich and successful, and we see people who are tzaddikim, who have tsuris like you wouldn't believe. They have afflictions, or they're really poor, or they have children that are ill, or that's something that and we just sit and we wonder what's going on. Hashem explained it to us. It is said that's what Moshe Rabbeinu was asking for when he said, Hashem, let me see your face. And Hashem said, nobody can see it, can see my face and live. And then the Psukim go on to explain that Moshe Rabbeinu saw the back of his head, or you could only see my back. And the idea is that Moshe Rabbeinu could only see after the fact what happens. After the fact, maybe he can see the effects of what Hashem has done, but not really fully understand why. And yet these people, the maidservants, so to speak, at Kriyas Yam Suf, actually saw justice being meted out appropriately. And the suggestion is that there weren't really only 3 levels of evil, or 3 levels of reward or punishment that should have been gotten, but maybe there were 40, maybe there were 50, maybe there were 200. And that is what the people saw at sea. They saw, possibly for the only time in history, they saw people during their lifetimes getting their just rewards, whether good or bad. I see we're at about a half hour, so let me just add one other quick one or two, and then we'll wrap it up. The 5 rabbis in Bnei Brak. We talked about them a little bit yesterday. I want to just add another interpretation. So they talked all night, fine, and then their students came in and said, rabbis, it's time for Kriya Shema. Why didn't they just say, rabbis, it's morning already and time to get going? What's the deal with Kriya Shema? Or actually, what's the whole deal? I mean, why not just say they talked all night? Why? What's the deal with them coming in at all and saying it's daybreak? And there's a message. The message there. The reason why they didn't know that it was daybreak. Daybreak is a metaphor for being able to see things clearly, and these rabbis understood clearly whatever it was they were discussing. They understood the messages of Pesach. They understood the message of Yetzias Mitzrayim, and they explained everything to each other so well. It seemed clear enough. It was, and we even have the expression in English, right? It was clear as day to them that was really the message of what was going on. And the very next paragraph sort of says the same thing. Rabbi Eliezer says the whole discussion is, do you say it day and night, or just during the day? What's the deal? And the message there is the same message. During the day, so to speak. In other words, sometimes things are really clear to us what's going on, and we understand, we can see Hashem's hand in our lives. And sometimes things are not so clear, and we don't know what's going on. For example, this whole situation we're in now, we don't really understand why that is. And what the message of Rabbi Elazar Ben Azariah is saying is that even the times when we don't understand things are going on, Hashem is still with us, and Hashem is still giving us a message, and that ideally one day, hopefully, the more we learn, the more things will become like day to us. Thus ends our half hour. Time flew by, at least for me it did. um, I want to wish everybody a good Seder. If anybody has any follow-up questions or would like links to anything that I've talked about, including this year, just drop me an email and let me know. And I hope, just as this is a very special time, maybe in a negative sense, I hope that we can find the sparks of goodness in our upcoming Seders. And while they may be different, and while we may be missing our family members that are not with us, that's the glass half empty part. Let's look at the glass half full part, that we have the time to go through the Seder and get meaningful messages out of it. So may you all have a very, very meaningful Seder.
You too, Shalom.
Thank you. As a quick note, I may try to do something next week on essentially what's the big deal. Why is the seventh day of Pesach a holiday? What's the point of that? So much so that it's a 2-day yontif for us. So I may try and do that. So look in your emails or WhatsApp chats. In the meantime, have a great Seder. It's great to see everybody. I'm going to turn the recording off now. All right.